Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our meeting number 2 of the Deer Park Middle School Magnet Boundary Study here at Newtown High School. We're going to be getting started in just a few moments. Thank you all for joining us. Please do make sure you've signed in as you came in. We have a sign-in sheet, a pink sheet for our committee members and a blue sheet for any observers that may be joining us tonight. Restrooms are located to the rear here. There's Mr. Paul Taylor joining us. Wonderful. In the event of a fire alarm or other kind of emergency, we do have emergency exits. We have them located over here to the courtyard. We have them to the front here, and we have them to the parking lot where most of you came in. In the event of an emergency, we'll evacuate out towards the parking lot, and then we'll use our sign-in sheets to make sure that we've accounted for everyone. We do have 2 audio microphones set up here, so it's very important for our live stream and capturing voices for folks at home. If you would like to speak at an appropriate time, please step up to one of the microphones to speak. If you attempt to speak from the table, unfortunately, the audio can't pick you up. So please avail yourselves to the 2 microphones that are here if you would like to make a comment during the evening, committee members. COVID protocols that are in effect, masks are optional. We do ask that everyone please respect your neighbor's preferences in regards to mask use and social distancing. We do have some disposable masks up at the front here. Hand sanitizer is available at all of our tables. And if any committee members are in receipt of a positive COVID results throughout the course of these meetings, we do have, you can reach out to Mr. Mike Godfredson in our Office of Strategic Planning. He's the gentleman that sends you your reminder emails, and he can coordinate any action or reporting necessary with our Office of Health. All meeting materials for folks joining us at home on the live stream will be posted to the website tomorrow morning. And our website, which can be reached through www.bcps.org and through the resources link at the bottom, will then direct you to a link towards the Deer Park Magnet Middle School Boundary Study. On that website, there is a feedback form, so we do welcome all public feedback through that form, and we will make a log of any feedback we received. We have not received any feedback to date. We've been checking that, but any comments that we do receive through those forms will be posted to our website. With that, I'm going to give it over to Mr. Matt Cropper.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you all for coming back. Really appreciate you guys being here and being a part of this process. It's really important to have you all around the tables working on this study and getting your input. And we've got some good things to cover tonight. Before we do that, let me see here. Clicker. They don't seem. Let me see. Let me get the power.
These 2? So 2 words here. Let's see.
Well, while he's doing that, getting the PowerPoint situated, one of the things we didn't do last week is we did introduce the consultants and the staff, like the leadership staff at BCPS, but we never did get to hear everybody who's around the table and your names. We didn't do any introductions of the actual committee. And so I think maybe it would be appropriate if we could just maybe go around and everybody can just tell us your name and what school you're affiliated with. And that way we can kind of get a feel for the people who are around the table and where you guys live and what school you're affiliated with. I'll probably just pass this microphone. Let's see. That way people don't have to get up every time. Do you want to start, sir?
Sure.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Roderick Hobbs, principal at Windsor Mill Middle School. Hello, I'm Simone Fisa, parent at Windsor Middle School.
Matthew Elliott, vocal music teacher at Franklin Middle School.
Maria Hawkins, I'm a science teacher and grade level manager at Franklin Middle School.
O'Neal Johnson, a parent of Pikesville Middle School.
Evan Campbell, assistant principal at Windsor Middle School.
John Hughes, principal at Deer Park Middle Magnet School.
Amy Hauser, parent to a daughter at Franklin Middle.
Monica Jones, school counselor at Northwest Academy of Health Sciences.
Hi, good evening. I'm Brian Schiffer, principal of Franklin Middle School.
Thank you. I'll pass it over here.
Andrea Beverly, parent, Northwest Academy of Health and Sciences.
Indy Gersh, teacher at Pikesville Middle School.
Dr. Kalisha Miller, principal, Pikesville Middle School.
Great, thank you very much. So it's good, we've got people from all over the study area working with us on this study. Once we get our presentation situated, we'll get moving here. I think it may be locked up. Okay. We've got some couple options to share with you guys tonight that we've put together. Really the intent of tonight's meeting is to get you to look at the maps, see how the two options look, and just give us your initial impression and feedback on the maps that are drafted as they sit right now. But I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves and just do a little bit of laying some of the groundwork. But everybody should have picked up a packet, a handout when you came and signed in, and that has the option data on it to put into your binders. And just bear with us, we'll be back on track here in just a minute. All set? All right. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you guys for your patience here. So just to go over the agenda tonight, we've got 2 hours slated tonight. We won't leave you here any longer than you'd have to be. So, if we get all of our work done, we can adjourn early. It just depends on how much a conversation we have. Wanted to go over some new information and just kind of give you an overview of the handouts, some of the stuff that's in the handout, so you can interpret that. And then working in some small groups and looking at those maps, like I was talking about, the two options that we had put together. And then have just a group conversation about the two maps that are drafted. Hoping to get some thoughts from you that may drive some change and maybe generate one or two more maps if at all possible. Trying to think of, at this point, we're not trying to figure out the best plan, but we're trying to figure out any map, how many maps, how many options could we create that accomplishes our objectives, and then we'll start the process of elimination as we get to the next couple meetings. So, like I said, we've got you have a new packet, boundary options 1 and 2 and statistics that you should have picked up at the sign-in table, and just get some information from you and some of your initial input on that. So we've got a long way to go. We've had one meeting where we kicked off the process. Here we are at second meeting, and we're doing these pretty much every other week until we finish the process, which got one more meeting after this, and the thought is, or the hope is that these first 3 meetings is we build a set of maps that we feel are viable to be considered for the boundary study, for the boundary change. And when we get to this meeting, depending on how many maps we have, we want to basically prepare for the public information session, which is October 26th. It's best to go to that public info session with maybe 2 or 3 maps to share with the public and get some input from them. But really, it varies based off from every process. So it really bases off what you guys think is best to share with the public. And we'll get back together after that public info session where we'll invite the whole public to come out here at the end of October. And we have 2 more meetings in November and December to finalize your recommendations. And the recommendation will be presented in February of next year to the board, whatever this committee decides to recommend to for the school board to consider and approve. So a little recap on why we need to do a boundary study, some of the rationale for that. As of September 30th, 2021, Deer Park was over capacity by 254 students. It's about 120% utilized, which basically has an immediate need for capacity relief. It's projected to remain over capacity in the future, so enrollment isn't forecasted to decline to give it enough relief. So there is a need to look at making boundary changes to balance utilization in this area, and it's consistent with the multi-year improvement plan for all schools recommendation for capacity relief. We've got our study area here, so when you see the maps, you see the area of the schools that are assumed that they could be impacted. So we're trying to keep the impact minimal here, trying to move as few students as possible, but accomplish our objectives, but with the understanding that any student in this area could be impacted. So no community or no school or neighborhood or boundary is off limits that we have listed here in our study area. Implementation is fall of next year, 2023. Whatever you recommend and whatever is approved by the board in February is expected to be implemented next fall. So talk about some of basically just overview of the objectives, reduce overcrowding of Deer Park, create viable boundaries that efficiently use capacity in all participating schools. Some schools next to Deer Park have capacity, some adjacencies have some capacity, so there's some room to go around and make sure that we're using all the space in this area efficiently. And to maintain or increase the student diversity among the schools to reflect the diversity of the region and the school system. So while we're moving students and trying to relieve capacity, also be mindful of what's happening to demographic dynamics of the schools as boundaries move. And we have that data available as well so that you can see that. We're following Rule 1280, which are basically our rules defined by the board to define what rules to follow when we make boundary changes. So these are the 2 things I've already mentioned that are primary considerations as part of Rule 1280. There are some secondary considerations, things to consider that align with best practices, and we do this kind of work all across the United States. I was in Chicago just a couple days ago doing a study outside of the city, and we bring a lot to the table on what is best practices, what other school districts are doing, and these align with that as well. So maintaining the continuity of neighborhoods. So when we're looking at moving boundary lines, moving an area from one school to another, try to keep neighborhoods and communities intact. Try not to draw the line down the middle of a residential street so that people who know each other, kids play together after schools and things like that, they can stay together. If they move together, and try not to split up communities and neighborhoods if at all possible. Look at transportation and be mindful of the impact on transportation, which I don't think we're have much of an issue at the moment with that, with the options that we've bringing to you. Minimize the number of times any individual students are reassigned, and that doesn't apply here. That's if there's an area that underwent recent boundary changes, make sure that the individual student isn't moved more than once through their tenure at a particular grade level or a school level. Be mindful of long-term enrollment and capacity, future capital plans. Try to plan as proactive as we can. Don't just don't be short-sighted, and be mindful of things that may be coming down the pipeline. And then be mindful of feeder school boundaries and feeder patterns. And so this study the focus is middle school boundaries. We are not making any changes, or no recommendations are being made or will be made to elementaries or high schools. But with that said, high schools and elementary lines are in play, and we're studying how the feeder patterns are impacted as we look at options. So when we talk about feeder patterns, we're talking about how much of an elementary school goes to middle. Is it 50%? Is it 100% of an elementary? Or is it maybe 99% goes to one and 1% goes to another? You want to avoid those real small splits that may exist as we make middle school changes. Be mindful of what we may be doing with those splits from elementary to middle, and then also middle to high. So we have that data is in your packet so that you can, so it's on our radar. We can see what's happening and the impact of that. Additional considerations is geographic features of railroads, creeks, major highways. Try to draw the line down major roads is a real best practice, and so that it helps align with transportation and things like that. Also minimizes kids walking across major roads and things like that if they have any kind of opportunity there. Try to ensure the safety and security of students and people as they go to and from school. And then to support ESOL strategic plan objective of returning students from the ESOL centers to home schools. So this is it's a plan that's in the ESOL master plan, is to do this, and this is part of what we're doing and being proactive in looking at ESOL students who are currently at Subric going back to their home schools for the ESOL programming and education. And that's not something that they're talking about doing right away, but it's something that's in the master plan. And since we have an opportunity to look at boundaries, we want to be mindful of that and thinking long term and being proactive and making sure that as the ESOL plan comes to fruition, that it doesn't negatively impact the work that you guys are doing on boundaries. So we got some questions that were asked last time. We have some follow-ups. All this material is available I think it's in your packet, and also available online. But one of the questions was, under what conditions may a student choose to stay in their school once this boundary change goes into effect? So there's something, it's called Policy and Rule 5140, and it's regarding special permission transfers. And special permission transfers will be approved during the first year of a boundary change for students currently enrolled in 4th and 5th, 7th, 8th, or 11th, 12th of the school affected by the change in an area. The student can express their interest to remain at that school through the terminal grade. So for this study, it's really those kids who are 6th graders right now, who are going to be 7th graders next year. They have the option to remain at their school without being moved if they are impacted. If they do have to, if a student who meets the criteria has a sibling currently enrolled, the sibling will be given the option of remaining in effective school through his or her terminal grade 2. So if they have a brother or sister, they are also eligible for the terminal grade policy. It's one thing to note is that students, if they do participate in the terminal grade special permission transfer, they do have to have their own transportation provided. So the buses are not going to be taking students who are in an area that has been moved. They have to provide their own transportation or find transportation to get to school. But this just gives a further measure that the school district is offering students who maybe that have that one more year of middle school. If they want to finish out their school, they can do that with this policy. Another question: what is the future? What are the future of Subric Magnet Middle School after the relocation of ESOL students? And so Subric, and then there was other people were asking about what about Subric as a boundary school and this kind of things. Well, Subric was not included in the study as it's a magnet school and it does not have an attendance area. You guys know that. There is no boundary for that school, and the assumption is that school will remain a magnet school. It was confirmed by the magnet program office that they intend to expand enrollment as those seats become available. So as ESOL program goes back to the home schools, that opens up space at Subric and that gives them the opportunity to expand programming at that school. And so Subric Magnet, it will remain a magnet middle school, and it will not be is not being considered as a boundary school. You guys broke up into small groups last time and marked up some maps and gave us some thoughts. And you reviewed plots and you marked up some maps and just some general conversation about, you were looking at the maps and kind of just getting your bearings on what the maps are and what the planning blocks are and looking at all the different stuff. And you circled some areas, some different groups circled areas that may be ideal for providing relief to Deer Park. And these are some of the concepts. We did look at some of these areas. So when you look at the maps, you'll see that this region up here is one of the areas that has been impacted and looking at moving out of Deer Park. And then you'll see some of this down here is going from northwest, from Pikesville to northwest, and trying to balance out utilization among these schools in here. And there's another option that does take a little more of this bottom chunk of Deer Park to northwest. But I'll show you some more details on the maps. Long story short, some of the suggestions that you provided have helped drive some of the maps and drafts that we've bringing back to you at this meeting tonight. Knowing that it's all draft and everything is still certainly subject to change, more maps can be created. You also did an opportunity analysis summary last time, the SLOC, and just gave us some input, some brainstorming exercise on the strengths and limitations, opportunities and challenges as it relates to the study and to this area. You were talking about parental involvement is a strong suit for the schools in this area. Also a lot of data available for the study. People are proud of their schools and their communities in this area, which is a strength. And then comfort level and peer relationships is also a strength to try to maintain and bolster. There are some limitations that you identify with teacher and staff shortages, transportation challenges, the ESOL limitations, and then only 5 schools in the study area were some of the things that you had identified as limitations, things to be mindful of for this as you continue to work on options. And then some opportunities: increase the diversity of staff and students, give Deer Park some capacity relief, and that relief will come quickly and immediately with next year, and then the opportunity to get some more, recruit more staff. And then again, staff has been kind of on all 3 of the 4 different blocks here. So the shortage of staff is certainly a challenge, and then the lack of space in the area, even with, if you look at the whole study area, look at the total capacity of the study area, this area is operating around 90, I think it's like 97% utilized. So there's not a whole lot of room to go around and to work with and to be proactive in this area. But that's really, we've done this work across the county for a lot of different communities, and that's just the way it is in BCPS, that they operate very efficiently, and there is not a whole lot of space to go around. Magnet program preservation is another challenge that you identified, and then also transportation, impact on transportation. So in your handouts, you'll see some statistics and data tables, just kind of give you a little bit of a bearing on what we're looking at here. This is just the current, this table shows us the current data on the current boundaries in enrollment. So we've got the capacity. This is the state-rated capacity for each building. You could see what their 6th through 8th grade enrollment is, and this is as of September 30th, 2021-22. So we're working with 21-22 data as of now. And then you can look at the enrollment, and then you can look at, this just looks at enrollment a different way. This is how full is the building. What's the utilization? So you can see Deer Park's 120 there, and then you have other schools in the 80s and 70s. So Franklin's at 82, Northwest is at 70, and then Pikesville and Windsor Mills around 93, 96. The overall average is 92. And this shows you your delta, how many seats are available or how many over capacity are they. Then we've also talked incorporating the ESOL changes back, so you could see there's some program movement here. So these are the ESOL students going back to their home school to be proactive and plan. So really what we're looking at is this post-ESOL table here. This shows you the balance that we're kind of starting with here. So Deer Park's really about 126%, and they all go up because there are kids who live inside each zone that participate in that ESOL program at Sudbrook. And so you could see it takes the total district average, study area average 97%, and there is some variation in utilization. Some are lower, like Northwest is 72%, Deer Park's 126. So the goal is try to get everything close to 97, maybe for starters, and then maybe fine tune that. If you see an area that has a lot of growth in it, you may want to take it down a little bit more so that they can grow into that. And if it's an area that's declining, you may be able to take them up a little bit higher so that they can eventually get into around that target number. So this is kind of the target number that we're looking for. In an ideal world, the schools would all be around 97%. Then we've got some data on how many kids live in, attend in, how many are living out of zone and coming in, and then unmatched. Those are just students that we couldn't find their address. They may have a P.O. box, something like that. But this just gives you some baseline data for starters, but before we start moving boundaries. Anybody have any questions about this before or anything else that I covered so far? So want to remind you, or just reiterate that these are drafts, the maps that we bring into you. We've got two options. Everything is considered written in pencil. Nothing is solidified or decided. So we want you guys to take a look at the maps, give us your gut reactions. What do you think about them? What areas do you think are ideal to move? Maybe where may there be some red flags, or areas that maybe shouldn't move? And as we go through that, also think, are there any other areas that haven't been impacted that maybe should be considered to move, that could move? And based off of your knowledge of what it's like, what traffic is like at 5 o'clock, rush hour traffic when school's going in or coming out, on different commuting patterns, and all your local knowledge is really critical in giving us that feedback. So still trying to openly explore and expand our number of options that we're creating at this point, and not trying to rule anything out. Although we can, if one of these maps or both of these maps are absolute deal breakers, you just let us know, and we can try to see if there's a better solution to put on the table here. So you have 8.5 by 11 maps in your handout. We also have an interactive map that's really useful. It's croppermap.com/BCPS-NW 2022. So this is an online map. This is a screenshot of it. This lets you expand open and turn on different layers. And there's a large geographic area that we're covering here. So the interactive map is nice because as you zoom in, you start to see more details. Property lines show up. You can see more information on the streets and things like that. So this is a good resource. I use it all the time. It is something that I encourage you guys to take a look at as well, and as you look at evaluating this area. And we've got everything's posted on the web page. So if anybody that you're going home and telling your neighbors and friends about what happened tonight and what kind of work that you're looking at, you can always point them to the school district web page under resources, and they can download all the materials that you guys have at your fingertips tonight. When you take a look at the maps, sometimes I take it for granted because I look at these things on a daily basis. I can look at maps, I can look at data, and things shoot out at me. But you guys don't look at maps and don't do this on a daily basis. And so just a couple guides, what I tell committees is maybe compartmentalize your analysis. Look at the geography, look at the maps, see what makes sense, what doesn't make sense with the maps. Then take a look at the tables and how do the tables look in terms of balance and what some of the impacts may be on numbers from different attributes that we're looking at. And then always keep in mind the best plan is going to be one that best adheres to the objectives and considerations as a whole. So you can't focus only on one part of one data point in the tables or the maps, because if you focus only on one piece, you start to deviate from the others. The best plan is going to be one that best adheres, is best overall, that best meets the needs for all children in this study area. And keeping those considerations and objectives in mind as we do that. We've got the next set of tables. These are when we get into the options. And so this shows you the current capacity. This shows you the starting point for enrollment. And then what is the enrollment in option 1 and option 2. So this is the table you go to if someone says, how many kids do they have at Deer Park in option 1 and 2? Well, you could say, well, the Deer Park has 1613 with what we're starting with, and then 1224 and 1252 in 1 and 2. So you can see Deer Park does get some capacity relief here, and others are going up and trying to bring them into balance. But this shows you total enrollment. You can also see, this is the table I prefer because capacity differs from school to school. You know, one school is 1,400, the other, Windsor Mills, 710. So percent full is probably a better indicator for balance, for making sure that they're equitable. And so you could see both options do bring these into a good balance, right around 97%, trying to get to a balance of available number of seats so that all the schools can adapt to some change from year to year. So you can see we have provided relief to Deer Park and also by moving areas and bringing these into balance. But these are, again, the starting point, first drafts to run by you guys. Oh, was there a question? Okay. We also have the demographic data for the current and for each option. And so this shows you the race and ethnic and then the farms and ELL data for percentages of the schools, and we have it for the current and for each option. And keep in mind, again, the current tables are assuming those students, the ESOL students, back at their home school, and so we're working at what that as a baseline. Anything below 5% has been redacted in here just to help with protect the privacy of any individual, and so that's why you'll see some of the cells are blocked out. But this shows you the impact, as you know, looking at it, what the impact may be on demographics of the schools from these categories. This we've been calculating impacts, so we will do this for all options, so you can see how many kids are impacted. Option 1 moves 722 kids. Option 2 moves 429 students. So they're a pretty striking difference in terms of the number of impacts. Trying to keep the impact as minimal as possible, but then it's not always best to pick the least impact option. If you think the other map looks better, it's okay to move more students if it better adheres to your objectives. And then if you wanted to know, okay, how many kids are moving from one school to another, this table right here tells you that. So the green cells show you students who did not move, but then here you see Deer Park to Franklin, 90 students move from Deer Park to Franklin in this option 2. 150 students move from Deer Park to Northwest. And then Pikesville sent some to Northwest. So you could see kind of the movement. This helps you know if you want to answer how many kids are moving from one school to another. this will help you get you that information. And then these are feeder patterns. So it's hard to manage feeder patterns in studies for BCPS because we're focused only on middle school here. And so we're trying to be as proactive as possible. But you could see here, when you look at these data, you see the percentage. So Deer Park currently splits to 3 high schools, and this is the percentage that splits to each high school. So in a perfect world, all these would be 100s, but it's very rare to see that across the board. And then you'll see that with any option, what is the impact? So how is the school? So Deer Park has 3 splits currently. This option 1 only splits Deer Park to 2 schools. And so you want to try to avoid these anything under 10%. I look at and try to see, is there any way that we can resolve a small split? Sometimes you can't avoid it, but it's always something that kind of shoots out to me as maybe we can make that better. And certainly you get below 5% splits, that's when you really want to see, is there something we can do to maybe resolve that, if at all possible. And then we have our walk zone data, so that no students have been impacted. No students who are currently in a walk zone are being put into an area where they may have to be transported. So I'm going to give you a little overview of the options real quick. And you can see this is option 1. And you have the big maps in front of you, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of a preview, and then you can dive into it when we break into small groups here in a second. But this northern section right here is an area of 795, and this is a Reisterstown Road, runs up sort of parallel to it. Some of this area here we've moved into from Deer Park into Franklin, but they all couldn't fit into Franklin. It would take Franklin over capacity if all of that area went in. So we found that we can't just move Deer Park to one school to accomplish the objectives, at least what we've seen so far. We need to bring some other schools into the picture. So we did move some of this area up here into Pikesville, and then Pikesville, so Pikesville relieved Deer Park up in here. And then you'll see over here, Northwest, since they have available capacity, they are spreading into, going east into the Pikesville zone to help provide some balance of utilization between Pikesville and Northwest. And this is around the Subric Magnet Middle School area. You'll see it on the map, and we'd like to get your input on some of that. There are also a few other adjustments. Windsor Mill sends some down here to Northwest in this option, and some other movement. So when you dive into the maps, you'll be able to see it. The background color is the option, and when you look at the map, you'll see the bold black outline on your map is the current zone. So you can kind of see how the map deviates from the outline is where there have been changes. So this does give Deer Park some relief. They go down to 95%. Balance of utilization across the study area. We do reduce the number of splits, so we try to get rid of those 3-way, 4-way splits is what you want to try to avoid if possible, and then the small percentage splits. Students can all walk, who currently walk are still walking. This option does impact the most students of the 2 options though, 722. The other one moves somewhere around 400 and something. And there are 9 splits from elementary to middle in this option compared to 6 with the current elementary to middle feeder patterns. And although they are pretty balanced still, we identify it as a limitation. Any questions about this one before I go to the next map? And when you guys break into your small groups, you'll be able to post some questions too for group discussion. So the second map is one same area up here, but not as far out. I think this one stops at Reisterstown Road and doesn't go all the way to the highway, to the interstate, and sending the area on Reisterstown to either Franklin or Pikesville. This also moves an area on this far eastern side of Deer Park into Northwest, because we didn't go as far up here. We just moved down here a little bit closer to Northwest Academy. And then less movement, but we still have movement from Pikesville to Northwest over on this side. But we didn't bring Windsor Mill into the picture here. This was one we were kind of looking at, can we do something that maybe impacts fewer students? And this one does impact only 429. Still have a good balance of utilization, so we've accomplished that in this draft, and walkers are still walking. And so that's the second option. So we're trying to do minimal adjustments to accomplish our objectives and not stir up the whole pot, but do what we can to accomplish our objectives. Just some reminders. I think this group's a good group. We don't really have to do this too much, but just be mindful of everyone's opinions and allowing each group member to have time and space to voice their opinions and concerns. Be mindful of the considerations. And just one thing that's key with this is that we start moving areas, it starts to get emotional. People start to say, oh my gosh, you're moving my neighborhood, or my friend lives there. It starts to get personal and emotional. Just be mindful that we're doing things that's best for all children in this area. And no plan is going to be perfect. There's always going to be parts of a plan or a boundary that you wish you could make better, but you just can't make it any better. But we're not there yet. I think that we could still looking at seeing ways to make it the best. But when it's all said and done, there's always a little bit of heartburn that goes along with the recommendation that we wish we could make it better. But there's certain elements of it that just aren't perfect. And that's something that you should start to understand, that no plan's going to be perfect in most cases. Okay, so we're going to have you guys work. Any questions before we break you into groups? So we have people at the tables, so we're basically all set up in your groups, the 3 small working groups. We're going to have about 30 minutes to review, as much time as you need to review these maps. You have markers and I think Post-it notes at the tables, I believe. And so we encourage you, these maps, as I said, they're drafts. We really appreciate it if you put your notes as you guys are talking right on the maps. Circle areas you like. You could circle areas and give it a smiley face or check mark, or you could circle other areas and give it a sad face and say, give pointers to us. Any other notes, just put them on the maps, because we take these back with us and study them as we work to create new maps. And so don't be shy about marking up the maps, because that's something that we really benefit from as we prepare for the next meeting. And then we'll let you guys give your time to talk, and then we'll regroup as a full team. Any questions before we let you break up into groups? Okay, well, I'll let you go ahead and get to it.
Just note that also on each of your table is a yellow parking lot question sheet. If any questions come up during your discussions, please write them on those parking lot sheets, and we'll take those questions back with us to consider as well.
But good questions all around. Good questions all around.
Okay, just keeping an eye on time, maybe about 5 minutes. If you guys need more time, we can go longer. But let's just think about maybe 5 minutes and we'll regroup as a whole. But if we need more, we'll give you more time. Okay, I think a lot of good conversations around the maps and things. I think though we're about ready to, the groups are ready to sort of share out some of the conversations they had and give us a little bit of some feedback on what they were looking at. You guys ready? Which group wants to maybe share some of the thoughts they had first? What about you guys? You guys, one of you guys want to come up and just maybe tell us some of the thoughts and conversations you had, just your initial reactions to the maps and things like that, or the numbers, anything like that? There's a microphone right here. I see you do have some things marked up on the map. We can take a look at that too. Want me to hold a map up for you? Okay, you're good? Okay, if you want to point to the map, I can hold it up, but you're good.
Thank you. You're a good noodle. So the red group, we were looking at some of the boundaries, and some of the questions that we had was, do we cap the number of magnet students that are accepted into Deer Park Magnet Middle School? Because the worry is, if we remove these students and send them to other schools, what do we do when Deer Park is still accepting in students that are not in that particular location? So that's something that we worry about, and we understand that that's a future issue that we might have to deal with. We also were asking for information about incoming student data from the elementary schools, because we feel like that's important in order to be able to make those decisions. We also talked about the way that some of the zoning was on the suggested maps that we were given for the two options. And we considered the fact that there are new housing developments currently being put in place in these particular areas, and how that might impact the enrollment of our schools as well. We also said that in order to make an informed decision, that we would need more updated enrollment information, which we understand we do not currently have right now. And we were looking at the zoning and said that we need to have more information about the apartment complexes, because we do not necessarily know where they're located and how many are in particular areas.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yep, we'll follow up with some materials and some follow-ups to your questions, certainly. Okay. What about this group? Does somebody want to kind of recap some of the conversations you had, or any thoughts? Before I break to the next group, did you guys have any suggestions on the maps or any observations on the maps that you thought? I know that I discussed one potential one with you guys. You want to relay that to the group, some of your thoughts on that? You want me to just summarize what that conversation was? I'd be happy to do that. So on option 2, they were looking at this map on option 2. Thanks, Chris. That this area was added from to northwest from Deer Park, but this area in option 2 doesn't go all the way to Owings Mills Boulevard. I think is that right? And so they were thinking maybe consider having the line go all the way to Owings Mills to follow a major road and not potentially split up a community in that area. So is that right? We talked about. What about this group? You guys want to give us a little recap on your conversations?
So we're the green group, and some of the thoughts and questions that we had, one of the major questions or concerns we had is in regards to the actual new boundary study when it comes to the ability for principals or administration to be able to determine whether or not a student is able to stay within the school based on the ruling in the event that student has behavior issues. So the current rule for special transfer is that it's at the principal's discretion. So at the end of the year, the principal can decide whether that child can come back or whether or not the child's going to have to be moved. With this new ruling now that the child gets to stay, if they're in 4th and 5th or 7th and 8th and 11th and 12th grade, how would that impact the principal's authority or ability to deal with students who are not demonstrating the best behavior in Baltimore County Public Schools, knowing that their parents may request for them to stay? That was one thing. Second thing, we also reiterated the same thing you said about the overbuilding in Northwest Corridor. That's not something that is new. I've actually lived in this area now for over 32 years, and I've watched this area significantly grow in areas that are already overdeveloped. As you guys may know, if you don't know, there's currently a townhouse development being built right now at the corner of Langs Mill Road and Owings Mill Boulevard. So Deer Park Middle would actually be the school that those children would actually have to go into. Then finally, we talked about how would shared domicile impact the enrollment of each school.
Okay, great. And could you circle on your map for us? Could you circle where that new development is? If you can locate it, that way we could just investigate that a little more and take a look. Did you guys have, oh. So, hold on a second. I'll recap what he said because he didn't have a mic. He was saying that this group, as of now, likes option 2. It moves fewer students and still accomplishes the goals, right? Okay. And did you guys want to add something too? Hold on a sec. Sorry, I got to put you on a mic because we're on live stream.
Okay, that is fair. So I will not yell. We were saying in the red group that we also preferred option 2. We didn't think it was the most ideal, but we said out of the 2 options that we were given that option 2 would be the best.
Okay. Okay, the other group concurs with that. What about this group in the back? You guys want to share some of your thoughts? I'll bring the mic to you. Oh, okay, they would come up here. Sorry about that.
That's fine, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Or good evening. Okay, so there's definitely been some overlap in our discussion along with the other groups. Definitely with the building in the Northwest Corridor. One of the things that we talked about is with the 2 options, was there any type of overlap with the Department of Planning to see what that future planning looks like? I know what we know right now, but has there been any overlap or any conversation with the Department of Planning to intersect this information? The second thing that we talked about are regional programs taken into account. For example, SEL and FALS utilize a classroom and have 5 to 15 students per program. Also OGE. So that also came up as well. And I think that was kind of it for our discussion, and I think there's overlap for groups.
So yes, some consensus and some common threads from group to group.
Yes, and one of the other things that I don't know if it's recorded here, but we also discussed if we could have some data, maybe going back for the last 7 years in terms of enrollment for the elementary schools that feed into the middle schools, because having that historic data would be impactful as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Sure thing. So is there anything that that was discussed or captured that wasn't brought up to the mic that people want to share that may have been missed or anything like that? Any other input? So we've got some good feedback. Gonna follow up with some more data points and things like that, and to help further inform you and clarify some things. And we'll take a look at this and also keep examining the maps to identify if any other options could be drafted from the work that we're doing. I'm just curious, what made you like option 2 more than option 1? Was there a major driving factor to that, to your thoughts on that, or what made you think that option 2 was better than 1? I think you had mentioned the lower impact, lesser impact. That's really the crux of it, of the rationale behind that? Okay. So we'll follow up with some of these things and get you some input back for the next meeting as we prepare for this. One of the things I wanted to just remind people is that now that boundary maps are out and options are out, you may get more buzz around the area and from people that you talk to at schools and things like that about, hey, there's maps out, they're talking about possibly moving me and things like that. So just always make sure that you point people back to the BCPS.org. There is a comment form on there, and you can tell people they can go on and fill out their comments. They can go on and tell us what their thoughts are on the maps, and that's something that we will be tracking. It's also a QR code on the PowerPoint that if they pull that up, they could pull up that QR code using their phone, take you right to the comment form. These are always, you can tell members of the public and anybody that's interested that these meetings are live streamed, so it's being streamed right now. And it's also recorded, so anybody wants to go back and look at what was discussed, you can always use it as a resource as well. And then always remind the public about the October 26th public info session. So we got one more meeting with this group before we invite the public to come here and look at maps. And we'll have maps posted up on the walls, and then we'll let the public look at them and answer any questions they may have. And for that, there will be a survey. So there are some ways that the public can be involved. They can always come and watch and observe the work as well. So always welcoming observers to follow the process. Anything else you guys have? I know you guys are a really efficient group looking at things and looking at the numbers and maps. Any other input or feedback you guys want to provide before we adjourn and let you guys go home for the night? Okay. So here we are. We're here back on October the 12th, Wednesday. I think that's about 2 weeks from now. We'll be back here at 6 o'clock, our last meeting before the public info session. And so we really appreciate your time, like always, and we will follow up with some of the conversations you had tonight, and look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks. Okay? Thank you, guys. Thanks for your time.